We're at NXT Battleground and we kick off the show in style with the NXT Women's North American Championship match between the challenger Kalani Jordan and the double champion Sol Ruka. And the match kicks off in the most expected way possible as Sol instantly looks for a springboard, but Kalani manages to flawlessly roll out a dodge before she's able to nail a springboard of her own, which gets immediately transitioned into a cartwheel kick to the face. But she gets distracted trash-talking Zarya, which allows Sol to recover and nail a big float over arm drag before sending her out of the ring. And Sol isn't far behind, as she quickly nails a picture-perfect suicide dive. Though she doesn't take advantage, as she actually says to Zarya to not get involved and unfairly aid her. But this allows Kalani to nail a reverse sling blade onto the concrete floor. And to get back into the ring, Kalani decides to show off by connecting a rope-assisted flatliner. Though the one-of-a-kind moonsault isn't able to hurt Sol, as she manages to grab the challenger, yet she can't do anything either, as this gets countered with Kalani paying tribute to her angle with an angle slam. Yet this first pinfall isn't enough, so she looks for a simple splash, though nobody's home, as this allows Sol to nail a super kick and hooked German suplex combination, though this too only grants Sol 2/3 of a possible victory. So Sol looks to snatch Kalani's soul, but she once again moves before taking the champ down with a simple double axe handle. Though whatever Kalani goes for next gets evaded with a well-timed shot by Sol. Yet the roll out of dodge works again for a drop kick, as Kalani nails a flippy elbow. And now, it's all things Kalani Jordan, as she nails an impaler DDT, which gets quickly followed up by a standing swanton bomb. And the onslaught only continues, as Sol gets squashed into the corner by a splash. Then she goes high risk, as she attempts a top rope swanton bomb, though Sol is able to move before nearly decapitating Kalani with a super kick to the back of the head, which is followed up by a fireman's carry powerbomb, though Kalani sticks in the fight. So Sol decides to put the challenger on the top rope, though she can't find anything up there, as Kalani is able to counter, which puts her perfectly in line for a springboard 450. Yet the champ moves and takes her down. Then she decides to upstage the inaugural Women's North American Champion, as she connects a 450 lariat. Though this only seems to light a fire under Kalani, as after kicking out, she counters a kick, spins her around, then nails a super kick of her own before following this up with a poison rana. But Sol somehow keeps up from this, although she gets put straight back down with another. And this greatly worries Zarya, who actually goes on the apron and starts to trash talk Kalani Jordan. Although she pauses, she doesn't know what to do, until she eventually decides to jump back down. Yet the distraction was all Sol needed, as she nails a German suplex before very quickly scolding Zarya before turning her attention back to Kalani, as she looks for the Sol snatcher, although she's able to grab her and invert her, but Sol fights out of it. Then both counter super kicks, before Sol attempts another fireman's carry powerbomb, though this time Kalani has it scouted, as she takes her down, descending to the heavens, then crashing down to reality for 5-star frog splash. But that isn't enough, so she goes for the one-of-a-kind moonsault again, though this time Sol unbelievably has this scouted, as with the speed of a god, she descends and connects a Sol snatcher out of nowhere. And with that, Sol retains. But would this have been the case if Zarya didn't get involved? Well, before we find out, it's time to find out the state of the men's North American title picture. Who will rise? And who will fall? Well, the match is on, and Ricky demands for Javon to bring it, which he of course does, as he nails a Superman punch before nailing back-to-back standing elbow drops. And to complete this combination, Javon forces Ricky up and takes him right back down with a Fisherman Buster, which gets hooked into the cover, though this doesn't do the job. But as he goes under his legs, he gets caught with a super kick, which turns the tide to battle, as Ricky starts to methodically work over the young OG with a kick to the gut and a knee to the arm. But the challenger fights back with a knee of his own, though as he goes for his twisting kick, Ricky manages to get out of dodge before connecting with a neck breaker and subsequent elbow drops of his own. Then Ricky goes back to the arm and hand, with stomp after stomp raining down on the challenger. Though Evans is able to catch his boot before spinning him around as he looks for his cutter, but Ricky once again manages to get out of harm's way. And then Ricky throws Javon into the corner before nearly concussing him with a forearm as he crumbles to the mat and in the perfect position for a double axe handle. But that's not enough for the champ, as Ricky then washes Javon's face into the mat, alongside nearly a 4th elbow drop. Thus, Ricky goes for a neck breaker, although this backfires horribly, as Javon is able to overpower the champ and connect a rude awakening. Then it's comeback season, as Javon nails 2 clotheslines before catching Ricky's leg again and sweeping him out. And it's time to get bouncy, as Javon looks for an elbow off the top rope, although no one's home, as Ricky then hits a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. But he wants the finishing blow, though Javon slips out of it, as he attempts to roll up the champion for his first title in the company. Yet Ricky reverses the pressure, as he attempts to steal the win, but Javon is able to reverse his reversal into another pinning predicament, which gets counted again into a 4th roll-up back-to-back, as Evans breaks the cycle and hurls out of the cover. And Ricky then charges at Javon, who meets him with a super kick before connecting his big spinning kick in quick succession. But the former Starks plays possum as he takes out Javon's leg before attempting a Buster Neaton, which gets countered into a Hurricanrana, and this allows for the Young OG to attempt a cutter, but Ricky pushes him away and nails a spear. Is Javon done? Well, no. He kicks out at 2, so Ricky looks for a kick, which gets caught, although he learns from his mistakes and nails an enziguri to the Young OG. Then he grabs his arm, although Javon manages to get out of whatever Ricky was planning and nails a cutter. But he wants one more. He wants it springboard style. Yet before he can hit it, Sean Legacy grabs his foot. He wants vengeance for his loss on Tuesday. And Javon is furious, as he just dives onto Sean before going back into the ring, before he gets met by another spear. And with a followed up Rochambeau, Ricky goes into the cover, but Javon has life. And with him face to face with the champ, he just slaps him, which gets a very volatile reaction by Ricky, who nails a Buster Neaton alongside another Rochambeau to pick up the win and retain the NXT North American Championship. And it was all because of Sean Legacy. And just like the opener, the main question is, would the result be any different had the match been a clean affair? Although this time, our answers are subsided by a certain man's ego, as Ethan Page assaults the champion after a successful title defense. And with a twist of fate in Ego's edge, Ethan Page ultimately stands tall. But who will stand tall in the highly personal inter-family war? Well, before Tony D'Angelo can even get into the ring, he gets jumped by his opponent Channing Stacks Lorenzo with a sledgehammer as he repeatedly beats it into the Don's back, until eventually he relents. He drops the weapon and heads into the ring, and he just goads Tony, and even though he can barely stand, he crawls his way into the ring and demands for the match to begin. So with that, the match is officially underway, and Stacks is all over the Don as he nails an uppercut and even a cannonball into the corner before just stomping him, telling him to put up a fight, which he does as he attempts to roll up the former underboss, which gets him a 2 and gets him put straight back down. And Stacks decides to just go for the kill as he manages to nail the Stacks knee drop, but he doesn't go into the cover as he nails another and another. And with a 4th, Stacks mercifully ends the match, yet he doesn't relent on the punishment as he nails Tony with brass knuckles after the bell. The underboss has now assumed the role of the Don, although everybody knows that Tony isn't done with Stacks just quite yet. But up next, can Miles Bourne pull off the upset of a lifetime and topple Obafemi for the NXT Championship? Well, the match is on, and it starts out with a fierce grapple, yet Oba overpowers Miles, and even though this is the case, they lock up again. And this time, the champ just drives him down. He even taunts at Miles to bring it, and he taunts right back, so Oba hurls him into the corner, yet he does fight back, though as he attempts a dive, the ruler moves and proceeds to dropkick Randy Orton Jr. But he once again fights back with a well-timed knee, although he gets chucked in the air for his troubles. And Oba quickly follows this up by nailing a big running power slam, which only graces him a 1 count. So the Conqueror then just hurls Miles nearly across the whole damn ring, before he actually does, along with nailing a devastating clothesline, which forces Miles to the outside. But Oba gives chase, as after nailing a European uppercut, he then nails a brutal powerbomb onto the apron, along with swinging him into it. Miles is done. No Quarter Catch crew look horrified, yet the champ doesn't care, as he chucks Miles back into the ring and goes into the cover. But somehow, Miles kicks out, and Oba is quite surprised at this as he continues beating down the challenger. Although Miles is able to counter a strike and nail an overnight suplex, but due to his back pain, he can't bridge the cover, which allows Oba to kick out at 1. So Miles then goes high risk, though this high risk fails, as Oba clobbers him in the gut before taking him back down. And the NXT champion zones in on the back of Bourne as he takes a page out of Sheamus's book by nailing a trifecta of Irish curse backbreakers, and he connects an exploder suplex to follow suit. But the suplexes don't stop as he nails a back suplex as well, yet Miles still won't give up, so Oba just goes for the kill, though Bourne is able to escape as he even manages to connect a ripcord flatliner, but only a 2 count, so he looks for one more, which he can't connect, as the Conqueror counters and nails a fall from Grace. Is Miles done? No, he manages to kick out at the last possible millisecond. Everyone is stunned, and this translates to Obafemi as Miles drags his body to his feet, and as one last stand, just like Javon did earlier in the night, he smacks Oba in the face, which gets him another fall from Grace. And with that, Obafemi has retained the NXT Championship, but it was a hell of a showing by Miles, as once the dust settles and Oba leaves a no-quarter catch crew behind, Miles crawls back to his feet and stands broken in the middle of the ring with Charlie Dempsey, who unbelievably turns on his stablemate by nailing him with brass knuckles, just like the former underboss did to LaDon. No one can believe it, including Tavion Heights and Ren Sinclair, as they both decide to not make any rash decisions and leave. All the while, Charlie Dempsey leaves Miles out cold. And someone else will more likely be out cold at the end of the TNA World Heavyweight Championship match between the challenger Trick Williams and the champion Joe Hendry. And things get off to a hot start as both men just duel straight away, though they both stagger as Hendry manages to send the challenger to the outside before going to the top rope and nailing a big time dive onto the NXT superstar. But Indeed changes things drastically as Trick is able to send Joe into the steel steps, and he just taunts at the fallen foe before sending him into the ring as he hits him with knees to the back until he sends the big man into the corner and lays into him with punches until he falls. But Trick's onslaught is seemingly never ending, as after removing his boot from Joe's chest, he looks to end the match early with a trick shot. Yet Joe unbelievably manages to catch him with an early standing ovation, though Trick manages to kick out a 2. The match was nearly over in the snap of a finger, yet Joe continues to stay on the attack as he nails 2 forearms, following this up with a shot to the gut and a knee to the face. Then Joe goes for the kill as he looks for a chokeslam, though Trick is able to counter before attempting the discus big boot, yet this too gets countered with Joe taking him down with a simple punch to the skull. So the natural evolution of this is a suplex, although Trick manages to escape and nail a chop block, which gives him enough of an open window to connect a bookend. And Booker T will be ashamed as he can only get a 2 count. But Trick won't stop as he rubs salt in the wound of a suplex before nailing an uppercut and a punch just like Joe's, which crumbles the champ. And now the challenger gets cocky, which costs him, as Joe nails a kick before attempting Obafemi's fall from Grace, which gets countered with a trio of punches. And naturally, the punches continue to rain from both men, who duel once again. And once again, they both stagger. Well, this time, Trick quickly manages to nail a discus big boot, but Joe survives. Trick is beside himself with rage, and this allows Joe to quickly roll him up, though this too only gets him a 2. And he then proceeds to miss a strike, which allows Trick to nail the slam dunk, but Joe still won't stay down for the 3, so Trick puts Joe on the top rope, although he can't quite manage to connect the subsequent suplex as the TNA superstar is able to fight back and hurl Trick away. And this gives Joe a second wind as he manages to connect a gorilla press alongside a gut-wrench suplex in quick succession. It's all things Joe now, it seems, as he manages to nail a Scott Hall special. But with the follow-away slam, the referee gets taken out. The champ can't believe it, though before he knows it, Trick attempts to cheat with a chair, which thankfully gets blocked as he nails a second standing ovation, but the referee is still out. Joe's own power has screwed himself over, and as he looks down at the referee begging for him to get up, Trick nails a nut shot, the TNA champion has fallen. And with this, Trick manages to nail the trick shot. And finally, the referee is up and counts the pin until a 2. Hendry lives, but not for much longer, as after one last act of defiance, he gets hit with one more trick shot to be put down for good. It's a monumental win for Trick Williams. He is now the TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and he is the first superstar to win an opposing company's title during this partnership. It's one hell of an accomplishment from Trick Williams, and a certain Carmelo Hayes would agree with that. Although now, it's time for the main event of the evening, as it's time for the Juggernaut to take on La Primera, or in simpler terms, it's time for Jordynne Grace to take on Stephanie Vaquer. And the match starts off with some pure graps, as each woman attempts to outmaneuver the other, though it's Jordynne's strength that manages to give her the edge in this department, as after hurling Vaquer overhead, she attempts a gut-wrench powerbomb, though the champion is able to get out of it, and she runs off the ropes, although she gets caught by a huge spinebuster, which doesn't get the job done just yet. So Jordynne goes for another powerbomb, yet once again La Primera escapes it and nails a headbutt in response. But that's all she can hit, as when she looks for a side slam, Jordynne nails a knee to the temple, and even though she swings and misses, the follow-up lariat doesn't. Though Vaquer is able to give her a seat with a knee before sending her out of the ring. And from here, the champ nails the challenger with a huge dive. Then she attempts a German suplex, which gets blocked, as Grace is able to connect a beautiful overhead suplex in response. And after sending her into the ring, she then nails just a simple suplex. Though she nails another, yet as she goes for a third variation, Vaquer manages to counter along with nailing a chop block. But Grace gets back up, so she shuts that down with a stiff forearm and super kick, and after a boot wash to the face, Vaquer ends this combination with a leg drop. Yet this doesn't get the job done, so she quickly goes to the top rope, though whatever she was planning at stopping her tracks, as Grace joins her at the top before connecting an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. Though that doesn't do the trick, so Grace decides to attempt to end the match early. Though before she can nail the pump handle half Nelson driver, Stephanie beautifully transitions into a roll-up, which almost gets the job done. And this upsets the Juggernaut, as she immediately pounces Vaquer over the top rope. La Primera's back might be broken in half, and after being thrown back into the ring, Grace finally manages to connect the gut-wrench powerbomb, but that only gets her a 2. She's growing frustrated, and Vaquer just won't stay down, so she decides to target the back with kicks before paying homage to Goldberg and nailing a jackhammer, yet that just can't do the job either, and with her frustration, grows an opportunity for Vaquer, as she nails a desperate knee just like several of the previous matches, alongside an eat defeat which can only grace her a 2 count. But you can't pick her up for the subsequent SVB, which allows for Jordynne to reassert control, and after taking her out of one corner, she puts Vaquer in another, as she takes her down and nails a Vader bomb, which once again doesn't do the trick. So she goes to the third corner and nails a dangerous looking powerbomb onto the bottom rope, and to complete all 4 corners, Jordynne hurls her into it before nailing a final cut. Yeah, that doesn't satisfy her, as she puts Vaquer back on the top rope, although she can't connect a big move, as the champ fights back, as she even connects a big crossbody to get back into the match. And after a quick second face wash, she then calls for the crowd, and Booker T, as she then nails the Devil's Kiss over and over, which nearly gives Booker a heart attack. But regardless, Jordynne is in the prime position for the corkscrew moonsault, so Stephanie goes for it, yet the challenger manages to catch her mid-move and plant her down with a Samoan drop. And to rub salt in the wound, the Juggernaut too descends from the heavens, but as she crashes down, Stephanie too manages to catch her, but she can't hold her. The pain in the back is too much, as she falls soon after, when she gets spiked on her head by a Kudo driver. Surely the match is done! Well, apparently not. Vaquer has gas left in the tank. Grace is beside herself, and Vaquer is somehow able to get up, and she asks the Juggernaut to bring it, as both women begin to slug it out of one another, and eventually they both stagger like Trick and Joe, but Stephanie manages to nail a pump handle half Nelson drive out of nowhere, Jordynne's own move, yet this doesn't keep the challenger down. So Vaquer drags into her feet as she looks for her SVB, but Grace is able to counter, although Stephanie counters her counter before attempting a back suplex, yet she can't pull it off. and as quick as the flash, Jordan spikes Stephanie on her head again, this time from a muscle buster. And to put the nail in the coffin, she connects the Grace Driver, which finally and mercifully keeps Vaquer down for the 3. We have a new champion! Jordan Grace is now the queen of NXT! Who the hell can stop her? What the hell is next for Stephanie Vaquer? Well, we're just gonna have to wait and see. As if you like this story, I think this might interest you.